Welcome to your first session of math video notes for your 8th grade / Algebra 1 class. This is something we may do more in the future. Just so you know, right now we're going to go through this all in one big long video. If I have more time to plan things like this, then I generally cut them into smaller chunks. So, you can do a part of the video, do a part of the homework, come back, do another part of the video, do a part of the homework. But for today, because I don't have as much time to plan this all out, we're just going to go through the whole thing. So pause when you need to, take a brain break when you need to, but hopefully this is all review. So here we go with area and perimeter. So most of you probably remember perimeter is defined as the length around a shape. I think when I wrote this outline, I was expecting, I think I had a longer definition in my head. But this is the total length around the shape. So maybe we fill in the word total. This is a one-dimensional measurement, so it uses linear units. So, for example, millimeters, inches, centimeters, kilometers, things like that. So just kind of that plain base, you're measuring length, what does your ruler actually have on it? Now, circumference is a special one. Circumference really, honestly, is just the perimeter of a circle. Now, the interesting thing or the different thing about circumference versus perimeter, perimeter will just look at the sides and we'll just add up whatever we see. But circumference, we're going to use a formula. And the formula, circumference equals 2 times pi times the radius. So r is the radius. So example 1, we're getting right into the examples. We're going to find the perimeter of each figure. So on this one, this is a rectangle. Now it's not marked very well, but yes, this is a rectangle. And I need to know all the sides. So obviously we're going to use the 4.25. And obviously we're going to use the 5. But I need some way to have this side and this side. So hopefully y'all remember, in a rectangle, those opposite sides are exactly the same. So this 5 millimeters would make this also 5 millimeters. So we'll add another 5. And then this 4.25 would mean that this side over here is also 4.25. So we'll add 4.25 again. Now, you may have at some point learned a formula for perimeter of a rectangle. I don't necessarily encourage formulas for perimeters of things because you can really just look and you have to have a different formula for every single possible shape, which is not fun. So I just look at it, make sense of it, use what you know about the shapes. That all is going to equal perimeter. Really, we just add this up now. So we just get out our calculator, 4.25. There were 2 of those, and 5 and 5. Not 4. Okay, so our total 18.5 equals P. When you report your answer on this assignment specifically, I need you to type in 18.5 and then add your millimeters unit. So we are running units with our perimeter, and then we're going to talk about area here in a minute, and I need you to remember which units go with which. So perimeter is a linear unit. We were just adding. We didn't multiply anything, so nothing's going to end up squared. When you type this in, there is a space between your number and your abbreviation, but you don't need a period after your abbreviation. So 18, period, 5, space, stop. That's just all you would type in. But perimeter is generally pretty straightforward. Our second example, we've got a lot of numbers here, but remember, perimeter is just around the outside. We are not going to use that 2.6 at all. Has nothing to do with perimeter. Now, maybe we use this same triangle later, and maybe we use that 2.6 later. But we're just going to use the 3, the 5, and the 6 because those are the ones on the outside. So 3 plus 5 plus 6 equals our perimeter. We get 14. So as far as our answer, 14, so 1, 4, space. Remember to put your inches in. On the Google form, I do remind you to add in your units. And if you get it wrong, one of the feedback things that pops up is, did you include your units? So just remember, keep your units in there. All right, then the circle, this is where it starts to get interesting. So the perimeter of a circle, remember, is the circumference. So if you look at the top left, I scrolled it down so we've got our formula there, but we can put it here too. C equals 2 times pi times r. Now the radius, remember, is just from the center out to the edge. So 7 centimeters is our radius. And also remember, a radius is consistent all the way around the circle. So if it tells us that that radius is 7 centimeters, just for fun to review circles a little bit, if I put a radius here, guess what? That's also 7. And this one here, also 7. So no matter where the radius goes, no matter what direction it goes in, it's going to be the same length as any other radius. But to actually solve this one out, our circumference here equals 2 times pi times r, which is 7. So we can, if you want to, if you just like to type in the least amount possible, 14 times pi, because 7 times 2 is 14. When you get to actual geometry class next year, they may ask you to leave your answer in exact terms. Now, we all know pi is an irrational number. Once I get this on my calculator, it's going to be a decimal that keeps going. I'm going to have to round it. So just kind of a side note, this is your exact answer. If we wanted to not have to round anything, we would have to leave it as 14 pi. But we're not going to do that. We're going to go ahead and get the calculator out. So we're going to say 14 times pi. Oh, look, the pi button's right there on the front page. We don't even have to go into the letter side. Now, I do believe that I have you rounding to the nearest tenth on all of your homework problems. So what I suggest, write down a couple of decimal places. And then for your final answer, that's where you're going to think, okay, let's round it to the, whoops, that's a little beefy. We're going to round it to the nearest tenth, but 8 is bigger than 5, so it's going to bring our 9 up. This would be approximately 44 centimeters. It's going to actually, rounding to the nearest tenth is going to take that one up to a whole number. It won't always. Generally, if I tell you to round to the nearest tenth, you're going to see a point something in your answer, but again, remember to put your units in there. So just a 44, if this was a homework problem, would be counted wrong. You would need that centimeter. Okay, so if you want to take a little pause here, go work on some practice problems. Anything that asks for perimeter now, you've got the information you need to be able to get those. If you need to take a brain break, this is a great time to do it. But we are going to just keep going on to area. So area is defined as the coverage of the surface of a shape. So instead of just the outside, like if we were imagining your yard, and the perimeter would be like if you put a fence up. That fence goes around the edge of your yard. The area, that's more like the grass over your lawn. Like that's covering the entire surface of your lawn. Well, maybe, depending on what your yard looks like. But this is a two-dimensional measurement. So this is going to use square units. For example, square inches, square meters, square centimeters. Now, you can also write this as square inches, or of course, you can write out the full square inches idea. But if you're not wanting to use the exponents, and when you're typing in your answers to your homework, you will likely not be able to type in exponents, I recommend doing this method. So the SQ period, and then whatever your linear measurement is. So you're including the square part, but it's a lot easier to type in. That's my recommendation, but you can do what you want. This will be one where you are typing in a lot. If you type it perfectly, Google Forms can tell you that you're right, but I will be looking over every answer here. So if you got it wrong, double check your math, but I will be checking to make sure that if it was just a typing error, that you still get credit for the math that you did right. Now, area formulas that you probably remember. So in a rectangle like this, to find the area, you would take the length times the width. Area equals length times width. Now in a square, it's really just a special rectangle. So there's a square. You can still do length times width. That's fine. But in a square specifically, each of those sides are the same. So if we do side times side, that's the same thing as saying side squared. So a lot of times if you just went to Google area formula for a square, it will probably say A equals S squared. Now a triangle, you might not remember, maybe you do, maybe you don't, I don't know. But the formula for area of a triangle is 1/2 times the base times the height. Now the base. Well, first you should look for the height. Height and base are always perpendicular. So if you look and you see usually a dashed line that goes through the middle, that's your H. Then whatever's perpendicular to that, that's your base. If you have a right triangle, your height and your base will actually be two sides of the triangle, but anything other than a right triangle, you're going to have that one of those dotted lines. So from the base all the way up to the top corner, but it has to be perpendicular to be a base and a height. Okay, then a circle, we're going to still be rocking with radius and pi, really. So there's r, right? So our area formula, area is pi times r squared. So remember your order of operations. This means whatever you find for your number on r, you're going to square that first, then take that number times pi. So we're not taking pi times our number and then squaring it. The squaring happens on the radius first. So now that we have this reference, we can find the area. Now these are all the same shapes with all the same numbers, but we're going to be doing different things because we're finding area now. Okay, so our first one is a rectangle. So this is just length times width. So area equals 5 times 4.25. Length times width. Now, honestly, it doesn't matter which one's which because we're just multiplying and you can multiply in any order. So 5 times 4.25. 21.25. Now, when I go to type my answer, and if this were a homework question, I would type in 21.25. I'd leave a space. Then I'd put my millimeters. But since this is area, this is square units. So if you're writing something out and you can use the squared, that's perfect. If you want to just write square millimeters, you can put SQ period and then the millimeters. And that'll say square millimeters just like that exponent did. Okay, here's a triangle. Remember the formula for a triangle is A equals 1/2 times base times height. And now the challenge, we've got 4 numbers here, but we're only going to need to use 2 of them. We need to figure out which 2 numbers we need. So the thing to remember, base and height are always perpendicular. And that's something that you can carry with you to next year. Base and height are always perpendicular. Okay, so when we look at this, there are 4 numbers that represent 4 lengths. 2 of them should be perpendicular. So we're looking for a 90-degree angle, and I see one right here. There's a box for 90 degrees. So our perpendicular parts, we're looking at this one for the 2.6 and this one for the 6. Now your base is always going to be an actual part of the triangle, so that 6 is our base. And then the height is whatever's coming perpendicular off of it up to that far corner. So our h is 2.6. So a equals 1/2 times 6 times 2.6. I'm just going to do 3 because 1/2 times 6 is 3 times 2.6 equals 7.8. So my answer is 7.8, but remember we've got to include our units. So 7.8, and it's square because we're looking at area. So square, and then it was inches. 7.8 square inches. Okay, then just one more example. This is all we've got for today. We're going to find the area of this circle. And remember, area of a circle, we're working with A equals pi times r squared. So again, 7's our radius. We found that when we were doing the perimeter of this. So our area equals pi times 7 squared. Now I know 7 squared is 49. So pi times 49. Now again, that's your exact answer. When you get to geometry and they say find the exact area of your circle, we would say 49 pi centimeters squared. That would be your exact. We're not rolling with exact. I need you to be able to type in a decimal, so we're going to go to the calculator and say, what is pi times 49? Now this is an approximate. Now that we're starting to round this, 153.938. We're rounding to the nearest tenth. So the 3 is smaller than 5. We're going to use, so it was going to round down. So our answer is 153.9 square units because this is area. And we were given centimeters, so square centimeters. And that's what you type in for your answer on your homework. So I really hope that this was all review. If this was not all review and you have some questions for me, please let me know. I will be back at school on Friday, so you can email me. You can wait until class on Friday to ask. I will have a group that I'm pulling in Friday for homeroom. I won't have time for just come and ask me random questions until Tuesday next week. So if you have questions, best way is going to be to email me so we can get those questions started getting answered. And I know to come to you during class on Friday and help you out with that. But just let me know. Hopefully this is all easy peasy for you. But if it's not, just a reminder, I am here for you. We can review any of this that you need to. So thanks for sticking with me through a super long notes video. And you should have everything you need now to complete your assignment. And I will see y'all soon.